Today it is the last day of Tour de Zwift 2025 and I still have one stage left to complete the event, and the reason is the last few weeks I have been in this super weird state of not being sick anymore but not being completely recovered from the flu either, and it is only a few days now since I've been feeling completely normal. I have been riding, don't get me wrong, but it was mostly easy riding, so I've been postponing this to the last minute, almost literally, and it is not a state I wanted to be in 1 week before the Zwift games. But it is what it is. Back to today. I still need to complete the stage 4, the climbing stage, which is kind of a pain point even when I am at full strength. I'm going to do the short one, Petit Douleur, 24.5 kilometers and 2 times Petit KOM. And here is the first attack of the day. We are only a little over 4 minutes in at this point, but the guy is going for it. I'm not overly concerned at this point because he's alone, and sure enough, after a little bit of self-distancing, he's going to be caught by this still pretty large group at this point. So by this point the group is compact again, but that's actually not going to be true for long. The first guy's attack probably stirred some competitive spirit in the group, and here you can watch another attack by 2 riders this time. And this time the group reacted, the effort actually increased quite considerably, and here you can see the third guy joining the attack, and by this point it is not an attack anymore, it is a breakaway. We immediately started chasing those 3 guys, but you can see in the distance they are already gone. Be that as it may, it woken up the group. You can see on the chart that the effort is steadily increasing. It's steadily yellow and green with specks of red, and here I even had to go really into red to stay with the group because the effort suddenly increased. Obviously that increase in effort was very short-lived and nothing too crazy, but since we have a Petit KOM coming very shortly, you want to maintain as much of a steady power as possible, and ideally you want to avoid any high intensity spikes. At this point, however, I'm keeping my heart rate pretty steady at around 160 BPM. I would prefer to have lower heart rate after a section of pretty flat riding, especially since there is climb coming up, but it is certainly something I can work with. Here was the first banner and first power up, and I received the draft, which wasn't the best would be featherweight, but it also wasn't the worst. I could utilize it in weak moment on the climb, and since this is the front of the group, I knew I would need everything that could keep me in touch. So the KOM just started, and you can see that the effort at the beginning actually wasn't anything crazy. I expected the group to start climbing at around 5 watts per kilo, which wasn't the case. We were doing around 3.5 to 4.5 at times, which, don't get me wrong, is still pretty fast, but it isn't something it would leave me dropped right at the beginning. So I was trying to utilize my Zwift play to steer around the corners. This is the point that actually broke the group a little bit. The guys at the front started ramping up the power to over 5 watts per kilo, which I obviously wasn't happy about, but on the other hand, I didn't feel as bad as I thought I would before start of the race, especially how my training went in the last few weeks. And if you watch my camera, in a little while you will be able to see me watching down to my bike computer, because at this point on the climb I received an exert breakthrough. For those of you who are not familiar with exert, breakthrough happens when you actually surpass what the system thought you were capable of. You can imagine it as getting a new FTP notification during a race. But at this point actually it looks like I might survive the first climb, which honestly I'm a little bit surprised. I expected to get dropped on it, but I guess the power wasn't so crazy that with a little bit of a suffering I shouldn't be able to do that. So I am very happy at this point. I'm finishing the climb at 186 BPM, which is actually very close to my maximal heart rate, and obviously my goal for the descent is going to be to recover as well as possible. So now we are descending, but let me actually go a little bit back and show you one Zwift phenomenon that is very common in racing. Take a look at the moment when we crossed the summit banner. You would probably expect that the effort would lower at that point, but it still continued until we were already at the descent. And that is actually something that happens very often on Zwift. And I guess that is something that comes with a little bit of a racing experience, but every time you reach the crest of the hill, make sure you continue to apply power to maintain the momentum on the descent. We are now back on the intestines part of the race, and there are another 2 guys attacking this group. We could still see the guys in front of us. Their lead actually didn't increase by some crazy amount on the climb, and it was clear that these 2 guys wanted to bridge it to them. It was a very honest effort, but you can see that we managed to catch them back. But immediately after we got in touch with them, they attacked again. And this time they are going to be successful, even though that the group reacted and increased the effort heavily. So from now on, there was only 8 people left in this group, and I believe there were 5 people in front of us. And by this point, I started to wonder if there is a chance for me to actually top 10 this race. Sure, we were very far from the finish at this point, and there was still the second Petit KOM, which undeniably would be more difficult than the first one. But still, there were maximum of 12 people in front of me at this point, and besides one another guy that was about 30 seconds behind us, the rest of the race was actually more than 1 minute behind. So I basically only needed to beat 3 people at this point. I've used my draft power up, even though it wasn't a really good place to do so, because we are approaching the next sprint banner, and I wanted to utilize them all and have a chance to have that featherweight. But of course, as you would expect, I quickly realized that was a mistake, and I got aero boost, which would be about as useful on the climb as would be my brakes. So this is the last bit of calm before the storm. This time the approach to the KOM was actually way more chilled than the first way around. I guess all the riders were just mentally preparing for the climb and wanted to save as much energy as possible. So here we go, Petit KOM number 2, and we very quickly saw a guy in front of us that got dropped from the front. So at this point that was a little bit of a chasing point for us. But I won't lie to you, the effort was really hard right from the start, and I'm already at 175 BPM, and we are only starting the climb basically. And I actually have to say that I admired the performance of the guy in front of us, because it was clear he saw we were approaching him and he tried to maintain the gap as much as he could, but here you can see we already got in touch with him and are continuing as a single pack. But unfortunately for me, I was also quickly approaching both my physical and mental limits in this race. By this point the group was doing about 5 watts per kilo. And I know there is only a little bit of the climb remaining. I know there is probably 2 minutes of the pain remaining, but it was too much for me at this point. I was still trying to do my best, but the guys in the front pushed and they were simply gone. I popped up my aero boost, which was totally useless, but I wanted to do everything I could. But you can see even on my face that this doesn't taste well for me. So by this point I know it's not going to be 10th place, so I shifted my focus to what's going on behind me, and I noticed there was a guy 7 seconds behind me, and I firmly told myself that I wasn't going to get caught by him. I was a little bit disappointed at the end, because I know that top 10 should have been possible, but it was also very nice to see that 1 week before the start of Zwift Games, which is the most premium event of the year, my fitness isn't completely wrecked from the lack of the training. I'm not going to race next week. I'm going to try to do as much as I can to prepare myself for the start of the Zwift Games. And that will hopefully allow me to bring you some really good content from the event I'm super looking forward. If you like this video, give it a like, comment, subscribe, and I'm going to see you in few days.